So that's all I have for today. I think we can open for some question and answers, right? Okay, back to you, Vincent. Thank you.
Yeah, perhaps I ask the first question. So where is Singapore in the evolution of this DeFi at this point in time? Based on your view. Thanks.
I think Singapore has done a very good job, right? Especially the government, the MAS, is the first in the world to come out with this Payment Service Act, right? And this came into effect early last year. I think it's the first time that Singapore government has taken the lead in this area by stepping into something totally unknown, right? Where the rest of the world still have no clue how to manage it. MAS came in and they tried to create a legal framework to manage this while still allowing for innovation. So what they did is they came out with this PS Act, and all the financial players, people who want to participate in this blockchain, they can submit and then they apply for license, right? The payment licenses. So I think Singapore government has created a very good conducive environment for this experimentation. And if you feel that your DeFi may be a little bit unclear whether it's legal or not, we can always apply to MAS for a sandbox, right? So you participate in the sandbox and it will help you to grow and managed by the MAS. So I think MAS view on this is still open. But of course, ultimately, they will need to have legal oversight like KYC, AML and all that. It has to be in place. It cannot be totally anonymous. That is for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, to ask, you may unmute yourself. Thanks.
Hey, hi, Vincent and Ben. I'm Rudy here.
Hey, hi. Hi, Rudy.
Sorry, I came late. I just listened to the last minutes only, but I'm interested to understand from you, Ben, when you are talking about SME specifically. So how do you think that SME, let's talk about Singapore SME, where all of this tauke, right? Who are fishbowl noodle tauke, right? For example. How do you think that this tauke who have money, they are busy with the fishbowl business every day, and then do you say, okay, this Defi is the future and it will help your business? How do you bridge this in Singapore SME? Well, of course, then if you talk about Southeast Asia SME, you probably see a bigger gap, right? So just wondering. Thank you.
Thanks, Rudy. That's a very good question. And I think for very small SME like to participate directly, it is still quite a long way to go, right? I think first of all, it needs to filter down. It needs to filter down. So the way we are handling it is that if you expect the SME to come and build their own DeFi, build their own payment system, build their own tokens, it is unrealistic. It's never going to happen, right? And what they need is that they need to join a platform, right? There are a lot of platforms out there and through this platform, they can participate in this ecosystem, this whole blockchain ecosystem. For example, we have a few blockchain ecosystem platform that we work with in Southeast Asia and China, and this can work with the different SME. For example, there are mini ecosystem that work with F&B. There are mini ecosystems that work with retail, beauty industry, and so on, right? So each of these, they work with within the whole industry, and it allows this SME to be onboarded without any technical knowledge at all, right? They just need to participate in the ecosystem itself. And the ecosystem will then work with the blockchain, or in future, maybe DeFi or whatever, right? So that way they will be able to participate in this future. They can't do it directly, unfortunately, because they don't even have a system, likely.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. I'm very happy to hear that there's a lot of support for SME, right? I mean, being SME, our company is, of course, then is very keen, right, to see the opportunity, how we can actually jump into the wagon. So
Yeah.
I'll contact you and Vincent to take the discussion separately. Thank you.
Of course, definitely. Thank you. In fact, that's something that we are working with quite a few projects they're working on right now that helps in this way. So the idea is what you call tokenize, to tokenize the business such that it can participate in what we call go digital, right? So it's quite complex and it has to depend on the business model itself. So how to use the tokenomics to enable or empower this traditional business. So it is exciting, but it's happening. I think it's happening, and we are the one that have been doing it for a while. So yeah, we can always talk. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Ben, there's a questions from Christine. She's saying that can Ben share some used cases of DeFi blockchain ecosystem with SME that Wallet has done in China? Does it work like concept of token as coupons and payment? Yeah.
Yes, it is something like that. So in China, basically you use tokens more like loyalty points, right? Because obviously in China, you can't say tokens out loud by itself, right? So it tends to be used like a loyalty system or voucher, right? More blockchain version of this loyalty points and voucher. And with that, the user can participate in this and they can exchange this blockchain. We have this instance in China. One of our partners in China, they use this called BU, behavior unit, right? And you use that to as a reward system to attract a lot of SMEs to come together and to form an ecosystem that attracts more users. I think they have about 6 million users in their ecosystem already, and they're using this token. But to them, the token BU is just a loyalty point system, right? And the loyalty point system can also be converted into other tokens. Of course, not directly, but indirectly it can be converted, and in a way the user can cash out, because traditional loyalty point system cannot be cash out, right? But this case they can do that, convert into Bitcoin, convert into OLO, convert to other tokens. So they give them an upside in that way. Yeah, for both the SME and the user.
Talking about China, what's your view in terms of this digital currency, electronic exchange, and this digital renminbi? Are they the same thing or different?
Not exactly the same. So CBDC is a general term used worldwide for central bank digital currency. China call it the ECNY, right? ECNY is still very new, but I think it has to happen, and it's happening in China and across the world right now. I think even in Singapore it's going to happen, right? So it cannot work by itself. Let's say China come up with e-renminbi, right? And no one uses these electronic currencies. It can't work with anyone. Just like you only have a Bitcoin, there's no USDT, nothing else. So you can't really work, right? You have to convert that into fiat currency and so on. So, but I think CBDC in general is the way forward, and it is not competitive. It doesn't compete with the cryptocurrency that we are talking about, right? Which is what in the business does, the private sector does. So the government will do that because it's more efficient, it's more effective. You can do cross-border payment within a fraction of a second instead of taking days. Now the cost is much lower. And of course, you can trace, right? You can trace the money where it is going from first hand to first hand and so on. So it will become better for AML and anti-counter terrorist finance, right? And I think most important of all, it will benefit world trade. It will make the whole world trade more efficient, because the world has been relying on SWIFT and this kind of decades-old system that's costly and inefficient, right? And a lot of people who want to send money back, remit money back to their homeland, it's like going to cost a lot, very high, right? And very slow. So in this case, it's more integrated. So CBDC is definitely the way to go. Yeah. And that will boost the blockchain, the crypto market as well, right? Because then in future, you may be just, you have a Bitcoin versus a trading pair of e-renminbi. Who knows, right?
Any further questions from the floor, from the audience?
Of course, today we didn't have time to talk about a lot of things like NFT, right? And all that. I think NFT in a way is also DeFi, but it is very exciting and it's like really happening right now. So I think in future, if we have time, we can talk about those exciting new stuff. So overall, I think DeFi is still in the very early stage. Just keep a lookout and understand it more and see in future how you can participate in it.
Yeah, there's another question from Mr. Liu Ang. Is DeFi technology going to phase out traditional bank or even World Bank organization, WBO?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I think in short, it will not, right? It will, CeFi and DeFi will coexist because CeFi are still needed in a lot of cases. You still need that the government bodies, the banks, so they will not go away, right? And DeFi itself will flourish in its own way. So it will address different needs, right? And to a lot of extent, that what I say is going to be a merge, a combination of C and D together. So definitely not the World Bank, not the central bank itself. They will still be there. You can't do away with them. Again, I stress that DeFi and decentralization is not to do away with the authorities. That was never the aim. Right? It is just to make it more inclusive, more open, lower the cost of entry and participation. That's always been the core, the case for decentralization. Yeah, you can't do away with governments. You can't do away with banks and central authority. Yeah. There's a question. There's difference between DeFi and decentralized exchange. Okay, decentralized exchange DEX is a kind of DeFi. DeFi is a more generic term for decentralized finance, of which DEX is one of them. Okay, versus the SEX, which is the centralized exchange. So decentralized exchange is one of the DeFi protocol, like Uniswap, SushiSwap. These are what we call DEX, decentralized exchange. And just now I did a comparison between centralized exchange and decentralized exchange, right? So the pros and cons of each.
Yeah, so there's another question from Mr. Liu Ang. We understand money market is partly controlled by central banks' interest rate. What about crypto and DeFi? So what are the factors affecting them?
Okay, crypto and DeFi, if you're talking about interest rates like compound and all that, their interest rates are not tied to the bank's interest rate because they have their own ecosystem, right? It's based on the demand and supply of the currency they're talking about. For example, you want to borrow the Bitcoin, right? And that will depend on how many people are supplying the Bitcoin and how many people want to borrow the Bitcoin. And there may be even different pools, right? Some larger pools and some smaller pools. So it depends on the pools that you join. Some may offer higher interest, some may offer lower interest. Okay, so of course, the lower interest, the higher interest, they will soon even out because as people move between them, right? So this interest, a lot of cases, they are actually controlled by the protocol itself automatically, not by a central body. So that's why we call decentralized. It's based on the demand and supply for the loans. I hope I answer your question on that.
There's a question from Desmond. Yeah, what is the safest way to store the digital currency?
Safest way to store, well, there are digital currency is based on what you call the private key, right? It's a private and public key. So that's why they say not your coin, not your key, not your coin. If you don't control the key, then you basically don't own the assets. So if you park your Bitcoin in a centralized exchange, you are giving the ownership to the centralized exchange. They can run away with it, right? They may be hacked and it's gone, or someone steal your money away, right? So there you have no control. Of course, if you trust the exchange, you can do so, but don't put all your currency into the exchange, right? Only put those that you want to trade often into the centralized exchange. The rest of the coins, so if you have a few Bitcoins lying around that you don't intend to trade, it's best to store it in your hardware wallet or cold wallet. That way you kept that in the safe and nobody can touch it. No hackers can hack it, right? It cannot be stolen. So that is the better way. Use a hardware wallet or cold wallet.
Right, there's another question from Rob. What are the biggest risks of DeFi? Hackers seems to be very prevalent in the space.
Yes, definitely. Like I explained just now, there are a few cases. The biggest risks are like the bugs in the protocol itself, right? Because it's quite a complex protocol. If it's something new, there's always a risk that there are loopholes in it that hackers can exploit, right? And it happens many times. So it can just take your currency away from you, right? So be careful of that. That's because all these are automated, so it can happen in a split second. So don't go for the new protocol. Go for the more established and tested protocol, which has been vetted by a lot of people. So that's the safest. So that's one of the biggest risks of DeFi. And of course, the fluctuation in the prices. So because of the fluctuation in the prices of Bitcoin and all these assets, you run into risk of impermanent loss, right? Or slippage of prices when you try to trade. So these are risks that you need to be aware of. Yeah. So of course, the key, don't expose your key. Never expose your private key away. And that way, nobody can touch your asset.
Yeah, I just feel that there's this big elephant in the air, or at least it's on my side. So apart from the supply and demand, apart from technical analysis, how you actually evaluate a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin?
Evaluate it for what? For the
valuation of like fair value, yeah.
Fair value. Oh, that's $1 billion question. So it's hard. Well, let's say Bitcoin, people have like Michael Saylor, they will say that, okay, look at the gold, right? If Bitcoin is a better gold, a digital gold, and gold is now worth 10 trillion USD, and Bitcoin is only 1 trillion. So in theory, Bitcoin can replace gold, right? And that means it will become 10 trillion one day. And that means there's 10 times of growth in the price. So that means that's why people say that Bitcoin can go to 500,000, right? Who knows, right? That is one way, because it is really a consensus. There's no hard and fast rule to base on. So it's quite difficult to judge in that way. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, talking about Bitcoin, it seems on theory they can have a Bitcoin transaction that's about 10 minutes. However, when I look at the Bitcoin blockchain, the height, that means from one block to another block, it's about 1 hour. So what's the difference between like 10 minutes transactional time and then eventually when you see the block, it's actually 1 hour? Yeah.
10 minutes is roughly the time to generate a block, right? So roughly every 10 minutes, there will be one block generated. And for a transaction to be confirmed, it needs at least about 6 or 7 blocks so that it becomes recognized and accepted by the blockchain itself. So if you look at that, it's about 1 hour or so, yeah, to be confirmed in that way.
There's another questions from Rob again. Do you think BSC can replace ETH as the dominant chain in the DeFi space?
I'm not very familiar with BSC, to be honest. But to replace Ethereum, there are a lot of protocols out there that have been attempting to do so. EOS, NEO, and now you have Cardano, Polkadot. All these are, by the way, Cardano, Polkadot, Ethereum share the same founding team, right? So they are all very viable competitors, right? And each going to have their own space. So I think in the future, the space is big enough. Ethereum is not going to die. It's still going to be very big. Cardano will grow very big as well. Polkadot is definitely going to grow very big because it's also cross-chain. So all these are going to have its own space, right? Still all, it's a very young industry. So I don't think, as far as you can see, there's, beside Bitcoin, right? So Ethereum, all these will have their own space. They're going to coexist.
Any more questions from the audience? I think the topic is very interesting. So, perhaps we're going to invite Ben again the next 1 or 2 more rounds. All right. And then, yeah, thanks a lot. Okay. So, I think the cryptocurrency valuation or even fintech valuation can be a very interesting topic. So what we will do is that we will actually try to come out some survey and see what is the general idea market way of perceiving cryptocurrency or even so-called fintech. So I'm going to show you a QR code. So please actually participate and then see what are your so-called view in terms of a fintech startup valuation. All right. So good for us to actually help to grow the community. So let me share my screen. Right, I hope you can see the QR code. Right, yeah. So just probably only 3 questions about your view in terms of fintech startup valuation. What are your so-called usual approach? Is it the discounted cash flow approach? Is it the market approach or other methods? A good example of fintech can be like a Square, the company called Square in US, but that one's already listed company. And then we're probably more interested in trying to evaluate the startup company.
Yeah, that's definitely a very interesting topic. A lot of new startups also meet these same problems, right? How to evaluate their token, how to design the tokenomics, and so on. So this discounted cash flow is definitely one of the quantitative theory of money is another one, and so on. Purchasing power parity. All these can be combined to come up with the approximate value or fair value.
The market approach is getting a bit popular because of the everything as a service, whereby cloud computing, and then eventually people try to capture the market share. All right, I think it's getting late. Thank you very much, Mr. Ben. All right. So yeah, so the next speaker will be Mr. Rudy on the wealth tech, and then after that, I think we'll invite Mr. Ben back for more discussion on this.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for your participation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.